one of the things we talk about when climate change comes in is how energy usage keeps contributing to it, how it affects the ozone. But the businesses the three of you have rely very heavily on it. So I'm going to start with you, Farhan. You've got refrigeration. Not only are you an energy user, you've got something called greenhouse gases going up the wazoo. So how are you going to deal with that?
That's an excellent question, Ali. The fundamental problem today is that we have forgotten how to design buildings which are climate appropriate. The savings are all in passive design. They're not in the high tech, I've got a more efficient split unit, I've got a more efficient chiller, etc. So what we do is that, for example, when we partner up with TPL to do this LEED certified building, is that we will energy model the building from the conceptual stage. And we will come back with scenarios of electricity consumption, of the amount of refrigerant that's going to go into the building, first costs, operating costs. And then we live now today, I think, in a world where integrated building design is, again, I'll use the word prerequisite. In the past, the architect would design the building, he'd send it to us, air condition it, electrify it. It's no longer like that. Because when we go back to the 3 P's of sustainability, the profit is a very important part of it. You have to make sure that your product is sustainable, but it's also financially sustainable. So that is one area. To give you an example, typically in our part of the world, the average developer will make buildings where in a room which is 10 feet by 15 feet, you'll put 1 ton of air conditioning. On our buildings that we're designing, it's 30 feet by 10 feet, 1 ton of air conditioning, because again, we've done all the energy modeling, we've put in place the passive design measures to reduce the demand for energy.
Does that make it more expensive to do? Is that a greater cost to your customer?
Okay. So let me put it to you like this. So if I have a building, let us say, which is 100,000 square feet, right? And I say that I'm using a 10 by 15 room, right? Maybe I'll get 600 and some tons of air conditioning, okay? If I use a building with a better envelope, then I'm only using 300 tons of air conditioning. So I spend a little more on better glazing, insulation, but my cost of air conditioning, the electrical infrastructure that supports that air conditioning is also halved. So you've got to work the numbers out, and you can find that sweet spot where it doesn't really cost you anything more.
Seth, your products are energy guzzlers.
See, we should take it a step back to the urbanization. Because, today you see urbanization, 56% of the population of the world is living in cities. You are talking about 4.4 billion. 2/3 of the population by 2050 will be living in the cities. So what does this mean? This means that the buildings is actually playing a critical role when it comes to sustainability and energy. So, and 2/3, 40% of the consumption of the building is related to the operation, and it's gonna increase to 2/3. So you should have the right product, the right operation, and the right, KPIs. And not only to focus today, because even on the previous discussion, we're talking about production, transmission, and distribution. We should also focus on the existing building stock, where you need to optimize, where you need to modernize. And here comes the expertise to modernize and reduce the consumption of the existing building stock. Because for us, it does not make sense to use solar to cover your inefficiency. So if you have a building, you should first improve the building and then install solar, for example. Same for the elevators. You cannot do it, just all of a sudden replacement or out of the blue. You should modernize improve, and then you focus in the future on the new projects. So this is what it does it mean when it comes to sustainability. It's all connected to urbanization and building efficiency.
Okay. Rizwan, for you, my question is going to be slightly different. I mean, sustainability, we've been talking about the climate so far. But for me, urbanization, living, habitat also means basic essentials, like drinking water. I mean, a little over a third of our population has access to decent or well-managed drinking water. So when you go into creating such habitat for lots of people, you need to first look at all of these things. How do you reconcile all of those against the environment?
Right. I think it's a very difficult question to answer, but I'll try to see how we can address this, at least from our own capacity. Now, as you mentioned, the resources are scarce, and you talked about water, you talked about, and there are a lot of other resources, right? So everything that we built, so there's a joint responsibility for us is, and I'm glad you put that question first to Farhan, because he's the one, he initially conceives a project, that how much energy intensive that project is going to be. And then comes like the clients, like for example, we at TPL, we have a strong vision and mandate to make sure that our buildings are resource efficient, and for that we do have a lot of measures. So for example, making sure we use taps and accessories which are water efficient, their flow rate is much efficient, and then also means of other mechanisms such as how to treat water, how to reuse it, for example, for other purposes like landscaping and so on. So the world has gone much ahead in terms of finding solutions around all these problems. And as our cities are growing bigger and bigger, the pressure on the city civic agencies to provide, say for example, water and to treat effluents is becoming intense. And that's where we come forward with the help of designers and with the help of civic agencies. We work around solutions that cater for all these things. So for example, one of the projects that we are doing here in Korangi, as I speak, we are right now doing the detailed design for the buildings. And for each building, we exactly know how much the resources is going to be needed. And we are working around how we can show that we are working with, say, for example, Karachi Water and Sewerage Board, which is installing a plant nearby, to see how we can collaborate with them. Unless we go and talk to these people, unless we do a debate, dialogue, and see where we can find these solutions, we will not be able to achieve that resource efficient infrastructure that we were talking about. So discussions like this, collaboration and giving mandate and priority to sustainability, resources and energy efficiency is the core of all this discussion. And then again comes the last chunk of this whole, I would say, ecosystem. That's the end customer. As I mentioned earlier, why would a customer buy a building that is sustainably certified, that has a LEED certification, for example? And that's where the customer and the real, the industry needs to come forward in terms of general awareness to masses, that, you know, you might need to pay a little premium for, you know, this particular thing. This will give you back in the long term. And as you mentioned, Farhan, that are sustainable buildings expensive? I would say no. Because if you see the capital cost, you might need to end up something a little bit extra at the front. But if you see this life cycle costing of that project over 10 years, for example, I'm going to assure you that those projects are going to be much economical for the even people who are buying them. So we will make sure, at least from TPL's mandate, while we do and go out in market and tell people, that you'll also make sure to tell these benefits, so that the real remaining ground, our customer also signs up for this. And that's how we develop this ecosystem